Hello, humane marketers. Sarah Znakrocha here. Welcome to another episode of the Humane Marketing Podcast, a place to be for the generation of marketers who cares. This is the show where we talk about marketing your business in a way that feels good to you, is aligned with your values, and also resonates more with your conscious customers because it's not pushy, ethical, and also beautiful. So if you're a regular here, you know that I'm organizing the conversations around the 7 Ps of humane marketing. And if you're new here and this is your first time, welcome. I'm so excited you're here. You may want to download your one-page marketing plan with the 7 Ps of humane marketing in the form of a mandala at humane.marketing/one page, the number one and page. So again, humane.marketing/one page. And with that, with no further ado, let's dive into today's conversation. Hi, Betty. How are you today?
Hello, Sarah. Thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited and simultaneously in a slight bit of discomfort in my lower back because I've been not looking after myself and sitting too much. So my body's reminding me today. So yeah, but very happy to be with you.
Yeah, it's good to have you. And yes, after our conversation, you need to go for a walk.
Yeah,
Barefoot,
great. Oh
ideally,
yeah,
right?
that
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah. Wonderful. We're gonna go deep again. I love going deep, so I suggest, yeah, we just go straight into it, and maybe you can tell people, listeners, a little bit about how you got into this inner healing and making that your focus for your business, and yeah, kind of the work you do.
Yeah, thank you. So when I where to start? You never know how far back to go. I think I'll do a very quick zoom over, like, a bird's eye view of my earlier life, just to give a context. And I think this is maybe similar to you, Sarah. I'm not entirely sure, but I was very much, yeah, I think people would, the easiest way of describing it is a hippie. Yeah.
Mm.
So like this kind of traveling mentality. I never wanted money, success, business. These were words that were very foreign to me and actually words I would run from in the other direction. And I spent most of my life doing, well, early life, doing was, yeah, traveling and getting jobs that I could easily quit. That was my priority, raising enough money so I could go to India or so I could, go traveling, have amazing experiences. And never really once did I think about growing anything of any meaning. And then I met my partner, Rob, and fast forward, and we're expecting a baby. And we were living in Barcelona on a very shoestring budget at this point. We were both teaching English as a foreign language. And And suddenly we're expecting a baby, and he was the same as me, very kind of shoestring traveler, musician. We'd both been in bands and festival lifestyle, this kind of thing. And so suddenly we're starting a family, and this is like a new feeling, right? Of like, oh, now I want stability. Like I'm aware of wanting to create something stable and grow something secure because it's not just about me anymore. So, I'd always been interested in therapy, but it was very difficult to know there's so many types of therapy out there that whenever I thought about, oh, I could train to be a therapist, it just was overwhelming. I could never make a decision. It felt like there's just all these different things. And then one day I heard a podcast with Marissa Peer, if you know her. She's
Mm-mm.
the no. So she's like she styles herself as a kind of celebrity therapist. And really the reason that she's made it so big is that the method she's created is incredibly powerful and very really works. Anyway, I heard her talking on a podcast, and she did this hypnosis kind of guided meditation thing about upgrading the child. The idea of this being that you're kind of going back in time and you're taking the earlier version of yourself and you're bringing them to live with you, in your own home as an adult, and you're going to look after them now, and they're safe now, and I'm upgrading you, showing you everything that's available to you now that wasn't available to you then, and you show them all the technology and all the amazing things that they couldn't have possibly dreamt of. Anyway, so suddenly I'm listening to this podcast. I was in the garden potting. I remember one baby, I had two babies by this point. One was upstairs napping, and suddenly I'm in floods of tears, Sarah. And I didn't know that, like, I didn't know that I needed healing. I thought that my childhood had been great. It was pretty, I thought, it was average. There was nothing, no capital T trauma I was aware of. And so I didn't have this desperate need to heal. Anyway, I heard about Marissa and I had this experience and I'm crying. And suddenly I know this is what I have to do. Yeah. And so, but it's so funny because I had so little, well, now I can see I had so little self-worth that I wouldn't even invest, and so little money, right? Having come from having nothing really. We were just scraping by and making ends meet, and we somehow managed to get enough for a deposit to buy a little house. And anyway, we didn't have a lot, but I didn't even want to invest the money to have a session on myself before doing this. I was always somebody who put everyone else's needs first, and I imagine many of your listeners can relate to that. And so I signed my partner up for a session. Well, I said, you should try this. And then
That's so funny. You're like, okay, you should go.
Yeah, you should go.
Just watch.
I mean, I can track that was a pattern, in my life where I'd take care of everybody else, but I hadn't noticed that or realized it was a problem, if that makes sense. Anyway, so I signed up, I did the course. We dug deep to invest. It's not a cheap training program. And I have lost track of the question that you asked me, but
just kind of how you got into it and
yeah.
and your own healing journey. So you touched on that.
Okay, good.
It's
like on track still.
Yeah. This notion of not really knowing that we need healing,
Right.
is probably something that you encounter a lot with clients, right? We're somehow
exactly.
stuck, but we don't know why we're stuck.
Yes, exactly, Sarah. You're bang on, really. And so many people feel this kind of energetic barrier somehow, that it's just not possible. But we'll come back to that in a moment. But so I signed up and I did the training course and I went to London, and I'm in this room with about 70 different, mainly women, who'd all signed up for this training course. And of course, and I was thinking, I've got here on the skin of my teeth, I don't deserve my place in the room. I'm not like them. I'm different. I've never had any kind of success in my life. I'm a complete outsider. And I just couldn't believe I was even there. I couldn't believe they'd even accepted me onto the course. Which now looking back is bonkers, is crazy. But that is how my core beliefs were. When I finally did do a lot of the healing that I had to do because I was training in it, I had to do the healing on myself. Otherwise, I never would have done. I was the one when Marissa was leading the sessions and we were all in hypnosis, like 70 of us. everyone's sitting there, drooped, head drooped, and she's walking around and she's guiding the session. I was always the one crying the loudest, like
Mhm.
sobbing and wailing so much so that I was distracting everyone else. But I never had a sense that anything needed healing. It's so funny. And then when once I started to understand the power of this method, and honestly, it's so powerful. I was seeing in the training, I was seeing some live sessions and some recorded sessions of Marissa, working with a woman, for example, who'd shattered so many bones in her body after a car accident she couldn't stand. And then by the end of the session, she's standing. This is like miraculous stuff I was
Mm.
witnessing. And my entire worldview had to reorganize itself whilst I was doing this training program. I like everything just reorganized itself in my head. And yeah, maybe I'll pause for a minute in case you have a
Yeah.
question.
So I'm happy that you shared how you got into this.
Mm,
And I think what we now want to shift into is like, yeah, the actual inner work, right?
yeah,
Because that's what this podcast episode we decided is going to be about. And so before I mentioned that a lot of us entrepreneurs, yeah, you said there's this energetic block, but we don't
right.
know what it is. And
Yeah.
so what you're saying, I think you're going to explain to me how it's different from inner child work, but you did mention to bring the inner child to the present and kind of like nurture it. So
Yeah.
yeah, tell us a little bit. I guess tell us a little bit first how and why so often these blockages are going back to childhood.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily childhood that we go back to. It could be anything.
Okay.
It could be a moment in your 20s. It could be a past life thing.
Okay.
It could be an ancestral thing. And now this is where, some people have different beliefs around this. So I just tend to go with what the client presents and what they understand is happening. And when we get into this relaxed state of hypnosis, it's like we just tune out the noise and we can really get very focused on what's real. And everything that's ever happened to us is still there. We can access it when we get into this very relaxed, very focused state of hypnosis. And what I've come to understand is the body, the human beings, we want to heal. We know how to do it. We just need to decide, I think, is the first thing. So I've forgotten the question you asked me again, Sarah. Um,
Yeah, like if it always happens in the childhood, or how do we know,
yeah, right.
where, yeah.
Yeah, so the reason that so much of this does go back to childhood is that between the ages of 0 to 7, when we come into the world, we are a blank canvas. We have to come in like that because we have to learn the ways of our family, of our people, of our community. We have to be able, but because we need to fit in, our subconscious mind, its job is to keep us alive effectively. This is like a very, it goes back to, serious just survival mechanism. So it needs to learn what's dangerous. It needs to learn what to be afraid of. And, you could that could be about certain animals or plants if you go back. But now it's like we learn different threats from our parents. What do they find threatening? What do they find scary? We just have a sixth sense about that, really. We just download that automatically
Hmm.
with a for good reason,
Right.
because we're trying to stay alive. Part of us, the subconscious, is just trying to keep us alive.
Hmm. Yeah.
Did I answer the
And
question?
so I guess, so what I know from inner child work is that a lot of the coping mechanisms we create are there to protect us, right? And so I think what your work is also, or what we decided we wanted to focus on is this idea of how can we, well, open these blockages so that we can really reach our full potential
Yeah.
without having, yeah, our inner child keeping us small and saying, "Oh, but you can't do that; it's too scary."
Yeah.
Yeah, take us into that.
So how we do it, how we stop the child from having control.
Yeah,
Okay, so the first step is we have to decide that's what we're going to do. First, we have to know that there's a problem because, funnily enough, I've worked with people who didn't acknowledge the problem, and of course,
right.
we can't get anywhere without that. They have
Yeah.
to have a very real sense of what's not working and what they want it to look like when it's removed, when the block is removed. And then, yeah, so the RTT, I mean, this is the method I learned from Marissa Peer, rapid transformational therapy. This method is incredible. So it's a type of hypnotherapy, and it blends a lot of different modalities together. You know, inner child, yeah, this kind of inner child work and parts therapy, like internal family systems, if people are familiar with that, and yeah, and a bit of tapping. There's all sorts of, yeah. She's just kind of taken a load of modalities and put them together to make this like super therapy.
Hmm.
Okay, so how does it work? So we need to know what's stopping us. And then what we do is we ask the subconscious mind to take us back to the root cause of that block or that issue. And what happens is, say somebody's, so if we're talking about business people, often the most common challenges are fears, if you like, can be visibility. A lot of people come to me just so scared to be seen, so
Right.
scared to be themselves, and they're presenting this artificial personality or they're presenting just like everyone else. But we know that we have to bring our full selves to the equation so that our people can find us. But
Right.
that's so scary for so many because we've got this need to be liked and to fit in. And that, as we can see, goes back to childhood when it was, well, this is such a deeply human thing. If you go back to tribal times, we needed to fit in because that was safety in numbers. If you don't fit in with the tribe, you're exiled. You're not safe. You might get eaten by a tiger. This it's a serious thing as far as the subconscious mind goes. The subconscious mind has zero sense of humor. So it takes everything so literally. So if I see somebody for visibility, let's say, and we'd always start by installing the core beliefs. So like things like I'm worthy, I deserve good things, I belong. These are the things that are so central and affect so many of us. Most people have this like underlying belief, like I'm not good enough. And so we need to attend to that. And once we've attended to that, we can look at this visibility wound. And what happens is so often that we go back to school when we ask the client's mind to take us back to the root cause, they go back there, and I count them. So that what actually is happening is they've got their eyes closed, they're lying down, and I'm saying, on the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you're going back, and what can you see? What can you hear? What can you feel? What are you experiencing in this moment? And then they're bringing to mind a moment from their earlier life. And so often with a visibility wound, it might be that they're at school, they might be on stage. I had one recently, one lady, she was on stage and it was just so uncomfortable and so unnatural. She just had these very bright lights shining in her face. And it wasn't like major trauma in this instance. It was just like we're looking for what we tell ourselves as a result of what happened. So it's not even about what happened. It might have been a very traumatic experience, but it might not have been, and each person will respond differently. So we're really looking for the meaning. We're looking for what I told myself after this event. And in this lady's, and she's a very successful woman. She's a doctor, and she's come to me to start her own business, and she felt so terrified of speaking about natural health, which is what she wanted to talk about, the mind body connection, but she felt like this complete blockage in her throat around speaking up, around being, just such fear that people would shut her down. And what we went back to, one of the scenes was, this being on stage and it just being so uncomfortable. And what happened as a result of that was we say to ourselves things like, I'd rather die than do that again. Or, I'm just, what do we say? Or there's all sorts of phrases like that become common parlance.
Self-shaming and
yeah,
like basically
just
negative self-talk.
Yeah. And just that was painful somehow.
And so it's a mini trauma, basically.
Yeah. That
we then sometimes blow up in our own minds.
Right? Yes.
I remember so clearly I was in a kind of like a mastermind group, and we were talking about all these kind of things and inner work, and people were sharing like real trauma, like losing their dads or all kinds of, usually related to some kind of grief, right? So I was like, well, I didn't experience any of that. Like you're like, I'm like, I don't have any trauma in my life. And then I started to make the difference between trauma with a big T and the mini traumas, that we almost like blow up ourselves in our emotions as well, right? It's not always something that happens, like you said, it's just like how we lived it. And what that then does in our heads and tells us that was not safe. You don't want to go there again. And so what you're saying is through the hypnosis, that's what you can, heal.
Yeah, well, when you uncover it, when you understand it, it suddenly makes sense. Then you go, oh, I see why I don't want to do that. I see why I don't want to go live on Facebook because of this experience of when I was on stage, or what people said to me when I was a child, when I was on stage. And then you can go, that is completely irrelevant. That's not going to happen now. So then we do this thing called It's Not Me. We just draw a line in the sand. We say, okay, well, then I was 5. And that made perfect sense to respond in that way. But now I'm an adult and I don't need, now I'm trying to grow my business and blah, 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 blah. And you give all the reasons why you do want to do it. And then we get into this kind of juicy, and this is my favorite bit at the moment. I'm really enjoying doing this parts work where we can scan around the body, because these traumas, these things live in the body. And so in the hypnosis, we can find them. We can locate where the block is. And, when it's, I'm gesturing to my throat here, when it's a thing around speaking out, when people have, and sometimes we go back to witch persecutions, all sorts of things, like sometimes people experience a hand around their throat, and you might wonder where that comes from, but that's not the point. It might be that something like that happened or not, but the point is it's there. And then we dialogue with it. It's so easy. We just ask it, why are you there? What happened? And then we explain. And almost always this part is trying to help. It's trying to keep you alive. It says, oh, I need to protect Betty from speaking up because she did that once and she died, or she almost died, or, if we're talking about past life stuff, or it was just really uncomfortable, or I just promised I'd never do it again, or I got beaten, or, there's all these things that it can be big T trauma as well. That does happen too.
Especially in past lives, right?
All sorts of things. But the thing to note is 99.9% of the time, these parts are trying to help us. They're trying to protect us. And they've just got this, if it's been there since you were 2, or even in the womb, so often people go back to being in the womb. And so they haven't got many options available to them about how to survive or be good or be liked. But, what they can do is create this kind of protective mechanism, but to stop them from saying the wrong thing or because it wasn't safe. And so what we do is it's so simple. We just give it a voice, Sarah. We just say, and then we say, thank you. I see why you were there now. And your only intention was to protect me. Hey, I don't need that anymore. I'm not two. I'm an adult. And then we say, you can go now. And this is the most exciting part because so often I can see when the part leaves. I can see it in them. There's just this relaxation, this relief. And sometimes it doesn't leave, but we reintegrate it. It wants to stay, so we find it a better job to do. I just go with.
I'm just laughing because, I just need to share this little story because I just literally until yesterday, I didn't know what IFS stood for. So internal family systems therapy or something like that, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And so we have a community, and Emily in the community, during our expo, she hosted a workshop around meet all your parts or something like that. And so I was privileged to have a mini session with her around these parts. And what I brought up is that I always have the struggle between ambition and enthusiasm. So naturally, I'm a very ambitious person, but over the last 5 or so years, I want to come to more transform it into enthusiasm and just be more in the flow and not be so hard, soften, etc. And so, she was guiding me through this mini session. And then the visual I saw, and I'm not usually a visual person, but the visual I saw was that ambition was like this friend who moved to another country. We're still friends, and I can still reach her, and we can still talk over the phone or Zoom, but there's a distance between us now. And that I felt such a huge relief that I can tap into the ambition if I need to talk to her, right? But it's no longer so close. And so that was my discovery with parts work yesterday, and it was just great.
I love that. What a coincidence or
synchronicity,
right? That
it's
you had
amazing.
that yesterday. It's amazing. Yeah, really. And just yesterday I saw a 73-year-old man who was struggling. He was a healer as well, and he was just really struggling to he had an audience and he was struggling to show up for them. And we discovered there was a part that had been there since he was 2 that was like his parents had left him too long on his own, and he had this abandonment thing, and that had come in when he was 2, and it was still there, and it took literally less than 10 minutes, and it was gone.
Wow.
And he felt completely different. It was in his solar plexus, and it was gone. And he said, I feel so much lighter. And he was grinning from ear to ear. He was just so happy.
Yeah.
And so really, the parts work is very exciting. Yeah.
So for people who are listening to this, well, first of all, we want to invite them to join us in our collab workshop on September 3rd, right? So if you're listening and you're like, I need to see Betty in action, and you'll take us through a hypnosis, right? So we'll actually do that in the workshop.
Same one. Yeah, the same one that I heard. Well, my version of the one that I
heard. We'll all be crying, but it's going to be a safe container.
Yeah.
So if you want to join us for that, that's at humane.marketing/workshop. So on September 3rd. But if people, can't join us, what would you tell them? Where can they start this connection with their inner child or their different parts?
Well, you could go to truewealthwithbetty.com. And if you go, I'd love to invite people in your audience if they're intrigued by my work. I offer a gift session. So would it be okay to
sure.
give so I mean we can presumably we can give the links
We'll
separately.
put the
But
link in the show notes. Yeah.
yeah, if you go to truewealthwithbetty.com/work hyphen with hyphen Betty, you can find a link to book a 45-minute gift session. And yeah, I love doing those. It's so much fun. See what we can uncover in just 45 minutes. And people have incredible experiences. Yeah, and just I wanted to say one final thing, Sarah, if it's okay, just why I've called my website True Wealth with Betty, because, you know, the name just came to me and I didn't understand it at the time. I just said, this is what I need to call it. And I didn't really know. And it's the name of my podcast too, True Wealth with Betty. And then I realized that, you know, for my early life, as I said, I had this, I'd never had much money, and never wanted it. But what I got was this like understanding that wealth is not about money. You know, wealth is about an ability to enjoy our lives. And so that is what I help people with. You know, they come to me for business. So, you know, this niche that I'm working in is helping entrepreneurs with a big vision who feel stuck or scared about the size of their vision. But what happens, the side effects, is where we always score the different things we're keeping track of, and where they've come to me with like a 1 or 2 for overall happiness, they're leaving with a 9 or a 10. You know, the everything in your life. I mean, everything's holistic, isn't it? We all know that. So when you do this kind of healing work, you might come to it for your business, but your relationship will improve. You know, your just sense of happiness and your presence and your mothering or your fathering, you know, all of it improves. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think that's so close to my heart. I think I shared with you that I'm releasing the latest book, Business Like We're Human, and just on the last conversation for change, Lisa, who was there, she was just sharing. We did a kind of a visualization around the Ubuntu tree, realizing that we're all one, you know, humans, family members, ancestors, but also nature. And then she was sharing as a kind of reflection how small the business part really is in our life if you compare it to the rest, and how small of an importance we can also give it, right? Yes, it has importance because we make our living with the business, but out of the big scheme of things, if you think about Ubuntu and the moon and the stars and nature and all of that, it's just a tiny thing. And yeah, to really truly be happy, the business is just one thing, and there's all these other things involved.
Yeah, but yes. And I think that, you know, when we do sort out the business so that it can be profitable, so that we can relax, you know, because so many of us in the early stages of business, it's stressful, isn't it? The roller coaster, the up and down, and, you know, will we be able to meet the bills, and will I have to give it all up and all of that? But yeah, so when we, and the other main focus that I do in the sessions is about our strange relationship with money, because that was my thing, you know, this thing about money won't buy you happiness was like this deep-rooted understanding. So those are the kinds of things that can also be unpicked with this work, and just welcoming in ease and more fun in the
Yeah.
business and more flow. You know, I think when we do this work and when we're operating from the adult who, let's face it, is it okay to swear? Who doesn't give, you know, a damn about other people, really, you know, that you're just operating how you want to operate. You get to do things how you get to do it your way, you know, and so often we're stuck in these shoulds, and then business isn't fun, is it?
It's
But
not.
when we make it our own thing, then it can be fun.
Yeah. Tell people again where they can find you and
Yeah. So
the name of
true.
your podcast.
Thank you. So it's truewealthwithbetty.com. And you can navigate there to the tab at the top, Work with Betty, and you can find the link to book a gift session if you would like to. And also, wherever you listen to your podcasts, you can find the True Wealth with Betty podcast.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Sarah. I'm so excited about September.
Me too. Thanks so much for watching and being part of a generation of marketers who cares for yourself, for your clients, and for the planet. We really are change makers before we are marketers. So go ahead, be the change you want to see in the world. And I hope to see you again next week. Take care.